All right, we're back with another episode. First, the sponsors. Head over to johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out a complete list of the sponsors there. I want to thank a few of them now. Special shout out to Sig's Hour. If you get a chance, go check out Sig. Go buy a gun. You'll thank me later. Make it a Sig. Pulsar. Thermal imaging technology is coming down in price. Guys, be smart. Hunt at night. Don't be stupid. Guys, go check out all the different brands that support the show. Rhino Metals, Secure It. We love our new Secure It walls. And, of course, everybody else, Blackwater Ammunition, Howler Head, Volquartsen Firearms, Right On Optics, Kenzie's Optics. Go check out everybody, guys. They're awesome. They're all listed down below. Support the show by supporting them. Leave reviews. I finally got a follow-up interview I was kind of after. I want to hear this guy's story and where he's going. Everybody keeps telling me, you don't understand. Tony McKnight at Big Daddy Unlimited, he's like Jesus Christ. So I wanted to get him on to give his side of it. I want to see where he's coming from. Tony, what's going on?
How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm hanging in there. Appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, and then you had to come down here and talk to the little people for a little while. What's going on?
Well, we got a lot of stuff going on. 2022 is going to be a big year for Big Daddy.
Now, everybody keeps telling me that you're like this, evangelical about the gun industry. What is it? What made you get into it, and why this and why now? Because you strike me as a guy who should be like in Boca with bleached hair.
It's just getting gray, man. It's all the stress.
Yeah. So what made you do this?
So it's kind of cliche the way we got into it, but it's true. My wife and I had a different career that we were embarking on, and we came back from a trip to the Bahamas, and she said, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore." And a friend of mine was actually doing a weekly talk show, and the talk show happened to be conservative talk, political talk, and he didn't have a producer. And I said, "Man, why don't you try out my wife and let her do it, because she's good at getting guests and stuff on shows." And we sort of got into the politics as a hobby, and one day she came running in and she said, "Oh my God, there was this shooting and they're going to take away all of our guns." And it was the Sandy Hook incident that happened in 2012. And what I said to her was, "Wow, maybe we should go buy a gun." And because up till that time we didn't even own any guns, and it wasn't that we were against guns, it's just that until the right was threatened, we never really thought about it. And so we went and took our concealed weapons course on December 31st of 2012. And then in January, we went to every gun show we could find within 60 miles. And by the end of January, we had 19 guns.
Jeez.
And so me being me, I said, if we're going to be buying all these, maybe if I get the license, I can get the things cheaper. And so I went and filled out all the paperwork, and we got a home-based FFL. And thought, hey, man, I got an FFL now. Let's get into business. And so I said to her one day, also, part of my background is internet marketing and marketing in general. And I came up with the name Big Daddy Guns because, excuse me, one of the things that I noticed is most of the gun shops didn't talk about guns. And so I said, well, what do you think about starting Big Daddy Guns? And she said, sounds kind of like a porn site. And I said, well, great. That'll work for us. So that's kind of how we got into the game. And I told her, I said, we'll basically do this to fund our hobby, because guns was a hobby. And then I realized kind of how hard the gun business was to break into, because it was one of those up cycles where everybody and their brother wanted guns. And every distributor that I called said, well, who are you doing business with? And I said, nobody. And they said, great, goodbye. And they hung up on me. Until I found one kid at one distributor, and I said, all right, listen, here's the deal. I want $20,000 worth of guns. I want them every month, and I don't care what you send me. And he had just started as a rep at this one distributor, and he thought I was kidding. And I said, no. And let me tell you, the first 3 months worth of guns that I got was the biggest pile of crap that I could barely even give away. And that's how we got in the gun business. And then I started learning about all the ins and outs and the artificial barriers to entry that they put up. But it was fun. And, unfortunately, I didn't know anything about guns, so to speak. I mean, I wasn't a gun guy. I used to joke, and it's true. My sum total of experience with guns is playing Call of Duty, because I played a lot of Call of Duty. And my goal when I first got into it was I wanted all the guns from Call of Duty World at War.
Well,
and so that's what I started buying.
Well, you had I don't know why you would ever think to get into this business, but I understand the reasoning and the threatening of your rights and feeling as if you're being shut out of something you want to participate in. And the gun industry has been a very strange place the last few years. And I imagine the time that you got into it around Sandy Hook, you had to be like, this industry's blowing up. This is crazy. There's a lot of room here. There's a lot of road. And you get into it and then you realize that there's not a lot of road because none of the doors are open. It's very strange like that.
It is. But you know what? Our attitude was there was room because our experience when we first started going to these gun shows and going into different stores, it was really strange. Like, hey, here I am. I got cash in my pocket. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know what I wanted. And the experience was just, I don't know, less than pleasing. And we said, there's got to be a better way to do this and treat people like normal human beings instead of, hey, you're an idiot just because you don't know what this gun is or what it can do. And so that's really how the whole Big Daddy Guns idea started. And really the only reason we got into retail is as we got going along, there were certain distributors who wouldn't sell to us because they're like, oh, well, you're a home-based guy or you're an internet guy and we're not going to sell you stuff. And a friend of mine called one day and he said, hey, I got this space over here. It's really cheap. Why don't you, it'd be a perfect gun shop. And I said, okay, sure. So that's how we started into the retail business. And we basically ran it like a co-op where, again, didn't know anything about guns, and friends would come in and they'd say, hey, I want to get this. And I'm like, wow, what is that? Let me check it out. And that's how I learned about guns, was just people coming in and talking to me about the cool things that they wanted to get. And I figured, hey, if they want one, I might need to get one. And if they want it, then other people probably want it. And that's how we learned. I tell you, the running joke was when I first started ordering guns, I told that first kid, I said, look, man, I only want cool stuff. I don't want nothing with a bolt, and I don't want no shotguns.
I'm sure your thinking's changed since. But
it has. I mean, what I learned real quickly was the gun business is sort of like the car business. People think, oh, you're a new car dealer, you must be making bank. And the truth is, that's not where you make the money, because, yeah, guns are expensive, but the margins suck. And really where you make money is accessories and other stuff. But, I wasn't really interested in that. I just thought guns were cool and everybody should have them. And we wanted other people to get excited like we were and be able to protect their Second Amendment right and also be able to get cool stuff.
And because you're new to the game, relatively speaking, you're not new to business, you're new to this game. There's a lot of growing pains. You go through a lot of different stuff. And this industry has a way of like, look at him, fuck him, and how dare he come on the block. There's a lot of West Side Story in the gun industry, and for an industry that's all about bravado, everybody's so quick to be like intimidated by everybody or scared. Now you come onto the scene and you're learning as you go, and you go through some of those things. There was a couple of different incidents that you deal with as a team and you figure out, and I know that at your points you've tried to have people come in and run the business. Now you're taking more of a lead role, and it's a passion project for you. And I'm sure it wasn't like that in the beginning. You like you said, you get into it, you get the dealership, you start selling the car, people start to think, oh yeah, you got to have all this. You realize real quickly that there's a lot of baggage, to put it simply.
That's absolutely true. We learned a lot of things
on the fly.
I want to say the hard way. Yeah, we learned everything on the fly. But our attitude was always, don't tell me how it's been done. Tell me why we can't do that, and I'll show you how we can. And we brought the same attitude to the gun industry that we did to the network marketing industry, which was our background at the time, and said, well, there's other ways to do it, and there's plenty of people out there like us who don't know anything about guns but are maybe interested in them.
Right.
And why not just treat them like other people in other retail businesses are treated, where the customer is king, and talk to people and educate them about what they want to get.
Yeah, I think that's something though, Tony, that's lost in the industry. I think this industry, it's not like other sports and other genres. It's very welcoming at first, and then people for whatever reason get this weird cloak of intimidation, whether it's another dealer, whether it's another retailer, and it gets almost like people are like, oh, fuck him or this one. So it's very strange. There's a weird underbelly. It still is very little industry, but it exists. And I think when you're exploring, whether it's marketing or ventures that you look at as a brand, there's a lot of that, like, well, why is he getting into that? And we're our own worst enemy at that point, right? Like we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because why does he want to get in that space? And I had Tom Taylor from Sig Hour on the show, and he said it. He goes, one of the worst spends of money I ever did was we sponsored a boat. I don't think Tom even knew where the boat was. He was like, but everybody kept coming up to me and said, great job on the boat. So he's like, we got a lot out of it. He goes, but you try things. And why? I don't know why that's such a difficulty in this industry for people to understand. Hey, we're trying something. Maybe, UFC guys might like shooting. I don't know. Call me crazy.
It's true. I mean, there's a lot of history in the industry, and there's, obviously guns can be dangerous if you're not
negligent,
using them the right way. But at the same time, I mean, think about how much people are exposed to guns through TV and video games and movies.
Yeah, I mean,
they see them all the time.
It's the easiest tool in movies, Tony, to create drama.
Yeah, and I mean, the truth is, once you go out and actually shoot guns, it's pretty cool. But our attitude has always been, there's enough for everybody, and there's more than anybody can imagine out there. And our attitude was always the opposite of the scarcity mentality. The industry looks at, hey, it's been kind of flat for years and years and years. It's got some ups and, some ups every once in a while, but at the same time, it's pretty much flat. The manufacturers make the same amount of stuff every year, and everybody's happy. And our attitude was, why can't you grow the industry? I mean, there's plenty of people out there who know what guns are, just don't know how to access them.
I want to ask you this. Do you think, because now you've been through this at an interesting time, right? You came into it Sandy Hook, and now you're hitting your stride. So you've been through, some highs and lows.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you see that there's going to be almost a reset at the manufacturing level? I think there has to be with ammo, because we all went on with that. We all know what went on with that Vista ammo debacle and everything that went on there, and the holding back of resources and everything else and components. Now, I don't think anybody, and I think this is something where you'd be aligned with a lot of guys. I think there's a lot of people getting into that game, and there's a lot of runway there, and that's going to be a really competitive space to watch the next few years. But do you think we're hitting the reset button on what manufacturing capability has to be now going forward?
I think if people keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. And so the expectation is it's got to go back to normal.
Yes.
But like I always tell people, my attitude is, hey, there's about 65% of Americans that don't own a gun. You want to grow the industry? Why don't we reach out to those people? They've seen guns. They've been exposed to them. They just don't know what they're all about.
Right.
Instead of selling the same stuff to the same market of people, why don't we figure out how to grow the market?
I for a long time, I agreed with manufacturers that the distributor retail space would be a tough space to breed in. But I've seen how bad the manufacturers are at marketing and at, really understanding how to connect with the public, with the exception of a few that have done a really good job, and many of them, support what I do. And I think there's just a disconnect, and they're not understanding how to connect with the customer. What are you guys putting in place to set yourself apart in connecting with the customer? Because I think that's the real goal of these manufacturers that have weaker marketing teams or connectivity to their field force.
Well, I mean, we actually have quite a few things that we're bringing to bear here, especially this year and next year. We've got some pretty big goals and some pretty big plays that we're going to do. But one of them really is, it's all about the customer, and also for us, the members. It's what do the members want? And our whole philosophy has always been, give people what they want at a price they can live with. We don't do the mistake that Walmart made early on, which is, hey, we're the cheapest price on everything every day all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like you get killed, because there's always somebody out there who's going to sell something cheaper than you. And it's not about that. It's about giving people value. And then, like here with our customer service team, it's, hey, no scripts. Just talk to the people. If we screw up, tell them, hey, man, we screwed up. Don't give them some corporate BS line. Just own up to it and say, hey, we screwed up. How can I make it better for you?
You're getting, more and more involved, I know, as time goes on in the insurance side and in the training side and in all these different spaces. What projects excite you the most to maybe bring to the marketplace? Because I do think with some of the things that I've heard that you're working on, that I think you're going to enter a really dynamic space as the world changes.
Honestly, we got our hands in a lot of nascent projects right now that have a lot of potential. But honestly, the one I'm most excited about is our retail expansion. Well,
you want to share? Or are you gonna? Don't make me beg.
I'll tell you. Our attitude is we want to put stores where people actually go to shop. In other words, if you want to go buy a gun, you either have to go to a pawn shop or you have to go to some place that's on the ass end of town, right? Your wife or your girlfriend's not necessarily going to go with you, or she's not going to be comfortable walking into that place because it's going to be some old crotchety dude with a beard who's going to look at you and say, what are you doing here, kid? We want to put them, my vision is, hey, if there's a Starbucks, we want a Big Daddy Guns right next door. And so we've got an expansion program. We've got 3 stores open, a 4th about to open here, and we've got 21 more on the board for this year, all in high traffic retail locations. But our whole thing is we're powering it through technology. Instead of having an old dusty store, they're going to be much nicer, brighter, inviting, smaller. And we're going to, instead of stockpiling them with dead inventory, we're going to turn it based on data. The data is the key.
Yeah, for years, the boondoggle at the FFL level was highs and lows. You'd have a run on guns with the right or wrong administration, depending on how you look at it, rushing to the space, and everybody would want to participate, which we've seen the last 2 years. Some call it the Trump slump, and then boom, we have this hit. Is when they go to adjust their books and purchase new products after they empty their shelves, is sometimes they get back into that same rut where the turnover isn't there. And that's where they struggle, because a lot of them are small family-run operations. I like the idea, and I said it when I had your guys out here, Jason and George. I like the idea of going back to retail a little bit. I think it's a 511 model. I think it's a successful model, and I see, I'm pretty good at reading the tea leaves. When I look and I see out there, SIG going to a less invasive sale where it's just the trigger. I see an opportunity for even smaller gun shops where they don't take on the accessories, because I think people want to feel it and touch it and see it. But I think at the same time, a lot of accessories are purchased online. For the most part, I've said to many companies, I'm like, I don't know why you don't have a kiosk set up with your whole product line, because a lot of them will complain, hey, we can't get this one scope in this store. But you can have an iPad. You can order whatever you want through the store. It's just you don't have it's hard to train up the people in the field and get the best of both worlds. You're bringing that all together.
That's the hardest part. That's what you just hit on. See, people come over here and they want to know what's the most valuable thing and what's the most important thing we're doing. The most important thing we're doing is the people that we're recruiting, because that's the challenge. If you want to grow a big retail store base, or you want to really grow your business, it's all about people, and you got to get the right people.
Right.
And that takes a lot of time, and sometimes you got to develop them. And, there's a lot of drama because you're dealing with people, but that's the key.
And you make one mistake in this business and they're ready to hang you, right, Tony? They're ready it's like, let's get them.
No doubt. The sad thing about our industry is we're our own worst enemies.
Oh, the worst.
One of the things we learned real quick is, we had started to sort of be in politics and play politics for a little bit when we got started. But what I realized is, right away, as soon as we got into the gun business, man, you were in politics whether you wanted to be or not, because half of the people thought you shouldn't own them and half of the people thought it was okay, but you had to pick a side. And so we did, and we went all in and said, hey, listen, at the end of the day, there's this thing called the Constitution. And in that Constitution, there's a First Amendment and a Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment. And so our attitude was always, let's educate people about what the Constitution's about, because they don't teach civics in school anymore.
The barrier you run into, Tony, with that thought process is a lot of the owners have a hard time adopting it, and they have a hard time understanding. And there's reasons for that. As a guy similar to some of your counterparts, Jason, myself, come up in the marketing departments, the problem is when you sit with owners and you want to create the content to create that narrative or that currency, and you want to put the stuff out there, you end up with owners that say, I'll spend anything or I'll do anything. I want to get the word out. I want to get the message out, and I want to be the thought leader. And then you say, okay, let's do that. And they stick you in front of a banner like the one behind you that's falling apart and taped to the wall. And because owners are cheap. And they don't want to spend the money on the right spend. They're looking for a savior. Everybody's trying to invest in the next Jesus Christ. And I tell them all the time, that doesn't exist. Stop, using the word viral in your vocabulary. You have to build. And message building takes time, and it takes good people. And they're not always readily available people. They're people you have to move puzzle pieces around. Not everybody's out on the street. There's not 10 Tom Taylors laying around the industry for people to pick up.
Exactly.
It takes time.
I'll be honest with you. We've been picking people from outside the industry. We don't care, because at the end of the day, a gun is just another product. And it's not about the product. It's about the people that are promoting the product and the people you got working for you. And a lot of the people, you got to develop them no matter what. And what we look for is people who got a passion for America and who understand that at the end of the day, this is about a constitutional republic. And this is just the genre that we're in. And we're really promoting America, and we picked this industry because we got the bug in it, and we found a lot of people who are excited about guns. They don't necessarily know everything there is to know about a certain pistol, rifle, shotgun, whatever, but they're excited about being here and promoting the message.
The problem is you can't go to the manufacturers and tell them it's just another product because they've controlled the narrative for so long. You know what it's like. You walk by these boots, you walk by these things, and they're like, you don't understand this pouch. It'll wipe your ass. It'll clean your toilet. It'll do this. And you're just like, dude, like the industry's become, dominated by the engineers and by the widgets. And it's like, look at, I was dying to go this year, this SHOT Show coming last year, because I felt like all the PPE equipment, and we would have had guys walking around in gas masks and everything, because it's so quick to jump on what's the gravy train of the moment, and we lose sight of the long-term objective. This industry's ripe, Tony, for a company to come in with the insurance piece, with the political piece, and everything wrapped in a bow, and the consumer-driven piece all in one place. And I think a lot of people would get behind it really quickly. You're 100% right. We eat our own. Okay, you as an owner could have $1 billion, $1 million. It doesn't matter. You haven't killed enough people. You're not tactical enough. You are not door gunner enough. You are not machine gun guy enough. You haven't done enough mag dumps, and you haven't hosted enough parties. And what cracks me up is the people that make those, talk that type of shit. They're the last ones to reach in the pocket when the check comes.
That's exactly true. But that, what? It's a little worse in this industry, but it's like that everywhere. I mean, most people don't want to see other people succeed. And the funny thing is, we always tell people, it's like, hey, you really got to come check out what we're doing, because it's not what you think. And when they come over here, they realize this doesn't look like a gun company. It's like, no, it's not. We're really a technology company masquerading as a gun retailer. Because we invest heavily in the technology and development. And what we're looking for is how to overcome the inefficiencies of the supply chain, how to, get more widgets out there into the hands of people, how to display more things, how to, promote those messages.
Right. Now you're doing some of your own off brands now. You're doing some stuff that you're producing now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to do more and more of that, because what we realize is, you said it a few
house brands
ago.
Are where the money is that what you're
it's not really there. Yeah, that's true. It is. But what I realized is that a small group of manufacturers has really controlled and guided the industry for a long time. But I have met literally hundreds of individuals who, it's like, man, that's a great idea. Why don't you bring it to market? And it's like, I don't know how. They either don't know how, or they don't have the money to pull it off. And what I realize is that, geez, there's all this cool stuff out there that'll never see the light of day, but that we can sort of champion and say, hey, this is cool. let's take a different tactic. Let's bring it to market and let's see what the market says.
Yeah. One thing I do admire you guys for is you jumped into the experiential marketing train early. You guys started putting stuff together pretty quickly. And I remember talking to you last year about this. What was the catalyst for that? Did you kind of look at the landscape and see COVID and kind of see we need to start bringing some stuff in house? Because we'll get to the exodus with SHOT Show, but is that something that you were very aware of? Because I give you credit for that.
I'd like to take credit for it, but no.
You were like, host a range day, 20 grand. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
We actually, again, it came out of what was fun for us and also what was lacking in the industry. And so we started to come up with stuff that we thought, hey, this is useful. And I mean, that's where Epic Shoot came from, because we went to the SHOT Show thing and it's like, geez, this is just freaking chaos. Well, what if we just got a couple people together and they brought their toys and we brought some other people that could film and we created some content? And it's like, oh, great idea. It was a lot of fun. We brought in some food. It was like a more organized sort of party.
Yeah.
And it took off. And it's sort of also the same thing with early on, we realized, hey, you know, you're going to be in the gun business. It's really hard to advertise guns anywhere. So how do you get the word out about what you're doing? And that's really why we kind of got into the whole influencer marketing deal, was that, well, that's how you can kind of get the word out without really being into advertising, because you're limited in where you can spend your marketing and ad dollars. And then as we've grown, we realized, man, we might as well just create our own content, because there's very few people out there. And there's a ton of talent. I mean, we got a couple of them in-house. I mean, Jason's one of them. We got this other guy, Denny Chapman, who's fantastic. And we're just,
he's got a good beard.
All over the place. Yeah.
They both do. I can't grow them like that. They both do.
I couldn't grow a beard to save my life.
Save my life. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think you kind of read the landscape a little bit, and I think everybody's going to make 100 mistakes, because that's what you do on the way to success, people. Is you're going to make 100 mistakes along the way. And I think you have to figure out what those range days or those activities become. We see SIG doing it now, building their experience center. We see other brands starting to move in that way. Scott Volkwartson just built out an experience center up in Iowa. So all these different brands are starting to see where marketing's going by starting to bring a lot of it in-house. I said it early on. I said the first brand that goes out and buys the show Cops, which John Langley's estate already sold it. I believe it's at Fox News. But I said the first. Remember, I said that to you when we were talking.
Year,
and who ended up buying it? Who ended up buying it? Fox. But I told you to do that, because ultimately people want to be entertained and they want programming and they want channeling. And right now, that's how they're absorbing media. It may only be for the next 10 years, but if you're not streaming, if you don't have your hands in some of that stuff, I know gun companies are already getting into NFTs. I think they're really, they're on top of it. But I think at some point you have to kind of look at the landscape and say, I need to go into this. Now, SHOT Show, conversely, the NSSF and NRA are going the other way. And I was on a call with one of them the other day. They keep saying, oh, we're doing grassroots. John, you don't understand. I said, there's nobody in the grass. There's no one left in the grass. So I don't know what to tell these orgs, but yeah, you have to pivot and make the moves like you're making. What made you ultimately want to turn the range day into a thing?
Really, that was it. It was, hey, how can we get some of these manufacturers, and how can we get, it really started off as a way to showcase, I don't want to say this in a negative way, the second brands. And third tier manufacturers that weren't getting any showtime, but people wanted to see, well, how does this thing work? What does it do? And really, it started out the first 2 years really was a show for us to create content. And then we realized that the manufacturers, like everything that's good, they start to talk about it, and then more people wanted to come. Yeah. And then, our third year, which was not last year, year before, everybody was so shocked at how nice everybody was because we did something different again, and all the staff was all our staff. So we took everybody from customer service, everybody that was working in the business, and we said, look, for these 3 days, we're doing this thing called Epic Shoot, and everybody's got to come. And we did it again this year. We had, I think we had 80 of our own staff there.
Yeah. I think that's the way to go. I do think the brands need to be more open to I see it as like the range day is a good thing, but I think you have to have some other piece, because if you look at models like First Form and other ones, it's not just about what happens in the gym, just like it's not just about what's on the range, to go down there. And the problem with the flawed theory with the range day as a marketing event is you're banking on everybody coming and wanting to shoot or wanting to do just that, or that's the avenue to which they market. So it's an ever evolving strategy. It's going to keep evolving.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought of something the other day, and I said, "Man, how hard would it be to basically do a SHOT Show East and put it here in Florida?" Where
you can do it.
I mean, I bet we could get 500 people or manufacturers to show up at that just because it's here in Florida, and you don't have to wear a mask and be on the lockdown.
I think, Tony, the industry's ripe for a micro to medium size event, something that's even less than what you're talking about. And that's something Jason and George and I talked about here, but done right. And when you look at how a production is done correctly, it's overdoing everything and doing it right. John Wong, who came from a similar background as you, he's doing one up at TriggerCon. He was doing one every year. He had the right idea, and especially in that Northwest corridor, you can't really, there's no gun shows. It's hard to get business up there going. So he's the only game in town. But I think if you create like a jamboree-like atmosphere where people are able to do meet and greets or whatever it is, or hold panels, what I don't understand is people get all these influences around stuff and then they waste them on a mag dump. I'd have these people doing, it makes no fucking sense to me. Like I said it to your guys. I'm like, you have to create an environment where they can do some of their media and they're provoked to do media. A lot of them, it's funny because this industry's so freaking strange when it comes to how they want to do media. Well, we got to go out and shoot guns. Well, why can't we do a podcast? Why can't we do a concert? Why can't we do other stuff? There's so many barriers, and I think the networking is I think when we network and we all communicate, we're some of the best people in the world. I think where we go wrong is we get on the range, we do a mag dump and we're like, see, my dick is 20 inches long. It's like, it's just, that's what this industry is. Everybody's trying to change, because I say this to Jason all the time. It's like trying to unite the clans. You have a lot of factions. You have hunters, you have preppers, you have the pro 2A people, you have the kind of blue but own a gun people, you have the females, you have the minority community. You have so many different communities in this melting pot. And it's like everybody's trying to fight for their own 7 minutes of I'm the baddest guy on the planet. Don't even get me started. You got the Mill Leo guys. You don't know what's going on there. You thought they were your customer. Now you realize like they're your partner. It's crazy.
It's true. I mean, that's one of the hardest things about the industry, because everybody's always worried about somebody one-upping them and taking something away from them.
Do you see what Brownells did?
Scarcity mentality. It's being afraid. And where I say, man, there's plenty for all of us out there. If we partner up, there's plenty to go around. I actually was sharing this with one of our young guys the other day, and he had said something to me, and he said, we can get this cheaper over here. And I said, it's not about the money. It's about the relationship with the people who are in the deal. I said, I don't care about, we can make an extra few dollars here. The value's in this relationship that we're creating. Yeah. And that's the hard part in the industry, because a lot of people are really guarded. They think you're going to take something from them.
Yeah. Now, I know you brought up influencer marketing, and I know that's something that you guys push hard, and you have a couple of really good programs that I know you worked hard on developing. It's a fickle thing. It's a funny thing. I'm a big proponent of the influencers in this community. I think it's very underdeveloped and undernourished community in so many ways, because they don't know any better. But part of the problem is the manufacturers and retailers and the guys with the pockets like you, that you got to have a plan, and a lot of people come into a situation, and it's both ways, the influencer and the party that they're working for or working with. There's no plan sometimes, and there's so many companies that I'm amazed, at what they put money into, and with no follow-up, no program, nothing. It's a hard thing to sort out. What do you look for when somebody wants to support Big Daddy or wants to come around? What's the number one ingredient?
Honestly, that person. We want to know them. We want to get to know them. We want to know who they are, where they're from, why they're doing it. And if it's somebody that we believe in, we'll support them, even if it maybe doesn't make sense. If
it's unconventional. It's a hard thing to sort out. Yeah. It's a hard thing to sort out. And I know you're seeing a lot of them rapid fire.
It is if you just look at it from a business perspective and say, geez, this person's got this many followers and this, that, and the other, and this is their engagement and all that stuff. We don't care about that. It's like, yeah, there's plenty of people out there you can go throw money at that can move the needle for you. Really, what we're always looking for, whether it's manufacturers or people that work for us or the influencers that we work with, we're looking for the relationship. We want people that are going to be part of what we're doing for a long time, not just a one-hit wonder.
Now, you've sat with a lot of them, and I do put the pressure back on the influencers too. I know a lot of you owners don't think that I do. I tell them all the time, you got to get more organized. You got to have your data together, and you got to have your numbers, and you have to be able to have a conversation. You can no longer go up to guys like you and say, I have an Instagram, give me 10,000. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I'm trying to explain that to the guys out in the field, that I talk to, and I talk to quite a bit. And I'm explaining to them, listen, you got to have rates. You got to know your worth. You have to be able to, explain deliverables, what you're putting together. When I started this show, I was showing people, and people who've been through here know this, decks, inches thick. Preparation, data points, bringing in the right brands, and creating that proper melting pot. The problem you run into is finding the perfect marriage where it's somebody that's like-minded like yourself that can look at that data and understand and make a decision. And whether it's good or bad at the highest levels, you try to always work together no matter what.
True. Yeah. But what we're finding, though, is that kind of like the third wave of people that are just now starting out, they're much more professional than the people who were the accidental successes from YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, that one day, they were making something, and then one day those guys sent them a check and they're like, whoa, hey, I'm something special. And now there's people who are getting into it, who want to be influencers, and they're taking it serious, and they're doing what you're saying. Hey, here's my metrics. Here's what I can do. Here's what I'm all about. Here's how I can fit in with your message.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but they're learning, and I think they have to understand, if you're going to be paid a good chunk of money, you better approach it like a business. There was always this misunderstanding, and part of it was manufacturers' fault, and part of it was the ambassador's fault all along the way. I think they're starting to kind of come together in a good place now, and I think people are understanding what the ask is and what to ask for. But I was always amazed at how many people you could go up to and you could say, well, what do you want? And they didn't know. That was always quite amazing. Now, Now, I've heard a rumor that you're a forward thinker, you're a progressive marketer like myself. I have to know that you've thought of the metaverse, and you've thought of what that could present itself in the industry.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because we do have a project that's going on, and then we're going to show at SHOT Show. We have a working model, something that we think is pretty cool, and I'm probably 2 steps down the road with it because I'm already thinking about, man, we should make our own video game.
Yeah. But
yes, we're there. We're planting the flag in the metaverse. And it's I think it's something that the industry needs. But again, like a lot of things, we're trying to position it where it's beneficial to a lot of people. It's something obviously we need to make some money on, because money is what funds it and continues the development. But at the end of the day, if you price it as something that's so expensive that people don't want to participate in it, it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, you'll get some people, but long term, it's not going to work. So we're big on investment and development on different technologies. Again, like I said, we really are a technology company masquerading as a gun retailer.
Now, with that being said, SHOT Show and obviously the NRA have taken heat for the lack of development of some of these different types of programs, or things that could reach the future audience and things that could develop that future audience. What do you think about where those orgs are? Are you planning on developing one that's better?
We have an idea about that, but again, it comes back to the people, and we'll put it out there, and our experience has been, if you think about it enough, the right people are going to show up to develop that idea. But I definitely think that the industry starved for it. Our industry is no different than every other industry. Look at the automotive industry; has been around for 100 years, right? And look at how it's developed and changed with technology. I mean, look at Tesla. Hey, man, it's the most valuable company in the world on electric cars that are basically computers on wheels.
Yeah.
Right? So the gun industry needs the same thing, needs the shakeup. The challenge is most of the staid people in the industry, they're not willing to make that bet, because they've got their budgets down to the penny. They know what the industry's going to do. Just like this last go round. Hey, man, COVID was a disaster. people didn't add extra manufacturing and stuff. They might have put on a third shift, but they didn't scale out because they said, oh, this isn't going to last. It'll be a year or two. We'll just starve the market and then go back to business as usual.
Yeah, it was, I think as we said, I think we're entering a new normal of what manufacturing is going to look like and what it will be looking like. And I think everybody's going to have to adjust their manufacturing capability and their thought process of how that's done, and including media. You know, one of the things I bet on big was audio, video, streaming, and a lot of those spaces, and creating less invasive ways to talk about guns and have dialogue and talk about the industry, because I felt the industry was starving for that. I think we're at that right place. And they, you know, if they don't want to provide a runway long enough to tell their story, you know, it's like I told your guys, until you tell your story, you haven't told your story. And it's like a bear shitting in the woods, you know, if no one catalogs it. So, you know, I look at a lot of these organizations and I think they missed a golden opportunity, because what a space it would have been to get into these, you know, what a thing it would have been to get into these spaces at that time. So I feel like that's a missed opportunity. Does SHOT Show last? Does the NRA show in the form they're in now last? I don't have the answer to that. I'm not a show expert, but I imagine you've already thought about it and built the contingency plan around, you know, things you're doing in building.
I think it goes on for a long time. I'll tell you a great analogy is, excuse me, Home Shopping Network.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not what they were 20 years ago, but it still exists. I think you're still going to have a SHOT Show, but it's going to change because, especially right now with what's going on, man, it's going to be a hassle to go out there. But you go there because it's, quote unquote, the only game in town.
Right.
Right. But if you give, like what you were saying, give people these smaller platforms and you maybe bring it to them instead of making them come to you, man, I mean, there's so many opportunities, so much possibility. That's probably for us the biggest challenge. There's so much opportunity. It's picking the right ones that you want to ride on for a little while.
Right. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be interesting to see how the industry comes out of it after this cycle. But we are marching towards, obviously, potential political wins changing a little bit. The Democratic Party, I mean, I was cracking up. Tucker Carlson was talking about Michael Jackson being cited, and he showed the Nancy Pelosi clip. I mean, this is getting crazy. So I imagine we're going to go through an interesting midterm and probably a beneficial cycle to the right side. But how do you see it playing out? And what do you think, if we get the House and Senate back, the first piece of legislation we should go for?
You know what? Unfortunately, I'll share something with you that I share with everybody. I mean, I'm obviously conservative, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether there's a D or an R up there. The seats change, but for the most part, government just gets bigger. And so if we don't get some different people in there, you're just going to have the same people doing it a little differently, and nothing's going to change. So I'm hoping that, you know, maybe this midterm, you sweep a bunch of these people who have been in there for, you know, more than 8 years out of the way, because, you know, after 8 years, you're no longer part of the solution. You're part of the problem.
I agree with term limits, and I wish they would get Nancy Pelosi out of there. Those eyebrows are terrifying. I can't take it anymore.
God, man. I couldn't imagine wanting to be a politician for your whole life.
I couldn't imagine going home to that.
No. Well, man, you got a lot of money, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I think we'll get that change we're looking for, and then it plays out, right? Whether it's national reciprocity or going after another suppressor act or anything in between, I think you're going to have these things start to come back up and present themselves. Whether or not the big guy decides to run again, or DeSantis, whoever throws their hat into it, it's going to be really interesting how it plays out. How do you see it playing out for the gun industry when we come out of this? Do you see us able to grow and embrace some of these new things? Or are we going to be stuck in that stodgy mindset?
I don't think much is going to change in the overall industry over the next couple of years. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some more young blood coming in. I mean, that's another challenge with the industry, is it's on a certain level aging out, where, you know, people, it's kind of like the farming industry.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to be a farmer anymore. It's like, who wants to sell guns, right? It's, you know, it's an old guy thing. But bringing in young blood and new mindsets and new people, that's the way that you reboot the industry and change it.
There's a lot of that, 60 and 70 somethings in this business that have that cold dead hands mentality. And I mean their job, like they won't leave the post, or they don't have the passion for it, but they're like, you don't understand, John. Susie has 2 more years at UNH. I just have to get her through. Exactly. That's what's going on. There's a lot of that. And people have to understand what these organizations are. These organizations become dumping grounds for guys who used to run campaigns and guys who are, ex-political, operatives. And there's a lot of those guys. So you get a lot of what I call, the widows and idiot cousins working for them. So, we all inherit a lot of those. There's a lot of them. So unfortunately, they become a cross to bear. And, we don't know. It's like everybody's cousin was working for the NRA at one point. It's like, give me a fucking break. Who else is going to be here? But,
we try to move them in and move them out quick if they don't fit. And we got a lot of young people here. I mean, we got people who are 19 and 20 who have pretty important jobs within our business, because our attitude is, I don't care how old you are. What do you know? And what can you do? And what are you willing to do?
Now, I was going to say, next year you're going to continue with the range days and continue pushing the experiential marketing. Is that going to be the focus?
Absolutely.
Now, any other products that you're developing that people can look forward to?
We have a number of deals right now on the table that will start to launch towards the end of the first quarter and into the second quarter. You're going to see us morph more into the manufacturing master distributor role to get some of these kind of new things out there that other people don't want to champion because they can't get it into distribution or they don't have enough marketing dollars in order to do it. That's what we're going to start to do. And also part of our thing with the whole retail rollout is, man, that retail rollout becomes a fascinating test bed where you can take somebody who's new and's got this new thing that maybe you think is cool that one of the master distributors doesn't. They don't want to buy 10,000 of them, and you can roll them out in all your stores and test it.
I've never understood for a long time why some manufacturers didn't get into the retail game, and I'll tell you why. There is a benefit to a brand having multiple stores, whether it's storefronts, because then you can control the market a little bit better. I've never understood why some of those guys like Sig has a huge pro shop, where they do a lot of business out of in the area, and that pretty much covers almost all of New England. Everybody's going to drive out there. It never made sense to me, especially if you had a complete product line or a larger set of SKUs like you guys do or some people. I never quite understood that. And I always think you can always have a brand store, and it can be a part of your marketing too, because it's a setup set essentially that you can always record or do content from or work with. And I'm glad to see a brand taking that seriously and taking that to the next level, because I think it's going to make a lot of sense as time goes on.
That's true. I think a lot of people don't do it because it's very difficult to do. It really is the staffing issue.
Takes money.
Yeah, it takes money, but there's also a liability component in it for our industry. But again, when I look at it, I say that's where the opportunity is.
Yeah, and I think at the manufacturing level, it puts you in an advantageous position because you're so connected to the customer.
And that's the big thing. Our whole goal over the next 5 years is to be able to go back to the manufacturers and say, hey, I know you were thinking about bringing out this because one of your engineers designed it, but this is what the marketplace really wants. You really should design this. Yeah. And if you do, we'll buy 10,000 of them.
Right. Now, you understand these things, and your background helps you understand them. A lot of them are not understood by many of the manufacturing owners and the engineers and the guys that have that mindset. Do you have to hire a lot of translators to explain this to them when you're explaining to them some of the initiatives you're kicking off, if you want to involve them? Do they have a hard time getting through the barrier that it's not just about their rail?
The truth is, I think a lot of them think we're full of shit.
You could swear it's explicit. You can let it fly. Let it fly. But no, I think you're right.
I had a conversation literally a year ago with one of the bigger players in the industry, and I started laying out all this stuff I was doing. And then I realized, because they were looking at me like, are you friggin' nuts? I would have thought, why are they thinking that I'm crazy? Because this is the opportunity, what's going to happen. And then I realized when I left, I'm thinking, geez, man, I just told these people that took them 25 years to get to where they are, that I just surpassed them in 2, and I'm going to be like 5 times their size in the next year. and telling them all these things we're going to do. And it's like, they just don't get it. But you know, at the end of the day, that's okay. We'll just go back to them and we'll help them get it.
Yeah, I gave up. People know I gave up trying to explain it to owners and to brands. And you know, getting into this space is duly unique because in most cases, guys, don't take this as a literal. You need a license to hold our product. You need to have a license to sell the product, and you have to have a license to manufacture the product. In most cases, unless you're in soft goods or some spaces that don't lend itself to it, but you're still in a space where you need shelf, and it's very difficult for some of these owners with that manufacturing mindset when they tell you how great their widget is to understand that doesn't mean you get the shelf space. I mean, I don't have to tell people the grocery business how that works.
Oh yeah. And that's part of the thing about the industry is it stayed the same for so long that, you know, coming in with the retail mindset, I had this idea that basically our goal over the next 5 years is to drag the firearms industry into the digital age and then take them back to analog. Because at the end of the day, every firearms transaction is still a person-to-person transaction.
Right. I agree.
We just want to make it easier and give them more education about what it's about and how to use it.
Now, easier said than done, but I would imagine you looked at 511 when they implemented their retail space blueprint, and they had a lot of success. I mean, I have no doubt that played into your thinking. Is there anybody else, because you get your hands on a lot of product? The question I wanted to ask you is, you know, do you ever find yourself sometimes being like, you know, looking at stuff and wondering, you know, why does this or how did, and you know, not necessarily wanting to make it a house brand, but understanding this industry through its products is quite the journey. Have you looked at anything or studied anything that you were like, geez, I really like what this brand's doing and how they're doing it?
No.
You haven't seen anything mind-blowing yet?
Not really.
I don't blame your answer. I think the largest growth has been in clothing, to be quite honest. You've had your hands go through.
That industry is still very
wide open.
Yeah, and there's not much innovation. It's like,
but you don't understand, Tony. 5 years ago, Jason will tell you the clothing in this business was awful. You couldn't get a pair of pants that didn't have 14 pockets. It was bad. It was bad. Everything you put on made you look like you were retaking Omaha Beach. It was so bad. Now at least you can have a backpack or a pair of pants. That's why I tell everybody, I think in this industry, the biggest growth spurt has been in soft goods. Yeah, we still have a long way to go. There's a lot of road there. But have you seen anything that you're like, geez, I kind of like how they're doing it?
Honestly, no.
Wow.
No, most of it sounds terrible. I mean, I really do like guns in the industry and all that stuff, but most of the people I've looked at are the ones who aren't in this industry, who have basically taken those products or services to market and expanded their market. But within the firearms industry, I mean, you brought up 511. I didn't look at their model. My first real experience with 511 opening all their stores was we got one down in Ocala, and the lady who's our landlord called and said, hey, 511 wants the suite next door. You want another 1,000 square feet? And I'm like, hey, if they sign the lease, that makes sense to me. And then we started looking at it and saying, geez, wonder how many stores they got. But, you know, they're in soft goods. They're not in guns. And the question is, do they want a gun store next to each one of their clothing stores?
Right. No, I think that's the right question. You know, and a lot of these companies now, because of takeovers and buyouts, they don't even want that. They don't even want that image. They want to be like Lululemon by next week.
Yeah, and what we want to do is we want to take models like Chick-fil-A and Apple and Tesla and Whole Foods and use those on the firearms and the shot industry and say, how can we get these products in front of the people and where the people go, and how can we make it an experience when they come into the store, not just a warehouse full of crap that we think they're going to buy because it's sitting on a shelf.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, the $1 million question is, or depending on how you look at it, is where does this industry go? What is the retail footprint? What does it all look like in 10 years? And maybe it's your dream scenario, but what do you think the reality is? What will the gun purchase look like 10 years from now?
I think honestly, it'll be similar to what it is today, other than probably what we're doing, and all we're really trying to do is pull people from outside the industry, staff our stores with people who aren't necessarily gun people, but who can explain the product to you, align ourselves with people who can train you on how to use it, but put the stuff in front of where people are going to shop. I think, again, at the end of the day, you hit on some of these things, that there are barriers to entry. There are licensing issues. There are requirements. I think you're always going to need the firearms retailer. I think in order for this industry to grow, we need a lot more of them.
Yeah. The boondoggle of the industry has always been, you know, when people start to get into the permitting process and these things with me, I've taken criticism on it because I've said to people, I've said, listen, I understand the concealed carry permit. I agree with constitutional carry, but you also have to factor in there's a lot of great instructors out there. The teaching component is huge, and we want to fund those guys. We want to keep those guys fed. We want them to have business. We want them to be a part of the process. I am all for everybody having a machine gun. I am all for everybody having access to whatever. If it's through a permit process, I'm all for that, as long as an instructor is getting paid and he's continuing to preach the message. I've always been in favor of that, but people don't understand how to even read the laws, let alone understand them. If you get constitutional carry, it doesn't necessarily mean you have concealed carry permanently, regardless. So they're always going to interpret that as a license. I am in favor of national reciprocity. I 100% believe that we should have gone for national reciprocity last time. Instead, we went for the Suppressor Act, which was totally fucking stupid. I think we totally should have went for national reciprocity. And that's been a mistake of this industry for a long time. But at the national level, it's very difficult, Tony, to explain to a lot of these guys. At the national level, they think we're still trying to have the argument that it's an Armalite rifle and not an assault rifle. At the national level, they're still interviewing Navy SEALs, saying that they're, you know, for the 2A community. A Navy SEAL has nothing to do with the Second Amendment community, other than the fact that they defend our rights overseas. But they're going to get a gun regardless. Okay, they're going to get handed one to go do that regardless we have the Second Amendment or not. But it's very difficult, very, very difficult in this industry for it to understand what the actual deal is. And I think you understand that. We need to have these FFLs. They are the lifeblood of the industry. We need to have these conduits of access. We have to have the ability to tap into the community. And I think it's been long overdue that someone come in and formalize that process and create an ecosystem that's, I guess, for lack of better words, a safe space that people can go and make their purchase. I think I'll steal a word from the left, a safe space. And honestly, you know, I think it's, I grew up in New England, so I'm used to the old gun industry. It was like one gun store every like 30 miles, but it was massive. It was like a mall. And then I would go down to Florida and visit friends, and they like had a gun store in a strip mall. So I saw all these different models that people created for what they thought the retail experience would be. I think guys like Ready Gunner do a fantastic job. I think there's some folks out there that do a tremendous job creating the range, the shooting experience, everything all into one. And I think that's where it's at ultimately. I'm just shocked that other brands and other companies haven't looked at it sooner. You know, why they don't. And I agree with you, the liability component. But I try to explain this to everybody. You have to understand the world that we live in and you're trying to build a business in. The world that we live in and you're trying to build a business in is run by someone who issues us a permit. That permit is approved by someone who works for the county or the town. That permit is issued by the state, and it's backed by law, both state and federal, to issue that permit. With the NFA mixed in there, nobody wants the responsibility. That's the bottom line, Tony. They want to create all these different barriers so politicians can say, oh, that's the state level, or that's this level, or that's that level. Give me a fucking break. So they make it hard. Right. It's a tangled web that they just weave it and throw us into it. Now, I love having you. I know we're coming up against time, and I don't want to keep you, but I want to ask you, you know, Big Daddy's been through a lot of different ups and downs, and it's a young company, and it's getting its legs underneath it, and it's figuring it out. What do you want to say to everybody out there that participates and shops on your website and has seen some of the events and doesn't quite, you know, understand what it is? What is it you want to tell all of them about what Big Daddy means to you and what it is of, you know, what it means to the gun industry, or what do you want it to mean to the gun industry?
Well, I think I want people to understand we're in it for the right reason. You know, we really are excited about firearms, the shooting, hunting, and outdoor trades. It's part of America. It's part of our culture. And that things that you see and hear, you don't always get the full story, and that there's reasons that you do things that people say, why would you do that? And it's like, well, there's more to the story than what you just see in the headlines. But you know what? At the end of the day, hey, we're approachable, and here in the office, it's like we got an open door policy. We actually don't even have a door on our office because they make us sit up in this loft. But people can come and go, and people can ask us questions. I mean, we answer emails too, my wife and I, and we're happy to talk to people on the phone. I mean, obviously, you can't convince everybody of everything on any given day, but at the end of the day, it's like, we're in the fight. We're laying it all on the line, and we're willing to defend the constitutional rights that we have, and we're voting with our dollars.
So you're all in.
I'm all in.
You are 100% all in.
I'm probably more all in than some of the people who work for us understand.
Well, that's what always gets me is the people that comment from the cheap seats, and I'm like, do you know how much money this guy's into this for already, motherfucker? Do you understand? like they make it sound like they're on top of the courthouse steps.
Any idea?
Yeah. People make it sound like they're on the courthouse steps every weekend. I'm like, I respect the owners. I love the owners, and I love having guys like you on. I always refer to the owners and marketing directors as geniuses because you know everything. And of course, you hate taking advice, but I can attest to my audience that I've given this guy an earful behind the scenes, and he's heard it from me. I mean, no question about it. And everybody gets it from me the hard way. There's no two ways about it. I've told him some things that I've thought along the way, and he has the right to say, fuck you. It doesn't, it's okay. It's okay. I'm okay with that. The difference is I'm fine with that answer. But I think, we have to question things. We have to create dialogue, not discord, dialogue, and have the conversations. Otherwise, we're never going to be in the right places. But that's
absolutely true.
You're a successful guy way before this. Will you explain to everybody, too, that you're going to make 50 mistakes, please?
Oh, there's no doubt. We'll probably make that many mistakes every day. That game is being right 51% of the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's really, you just keep going. You don't quit. That's the one thing about America that still is true today. It's the one country in the world where you can fail 100 times, but as long as you get up and try 101, you can succeed. I mean, there's other countries you fail once, you're done. That's it. The rest of your life is over. You're never going to get another shot. Here, you just keep trying. And the great thing is you can try different things until you figure out what works.
I agree with you. I think you're 100% right. But I think people don't realize that. They look for perfection from the start. Like I said, the fact that you're not a NASA door gunner, you're already at a disadvantage. You're already at a disadvantage. You're not tactical enough. I'm here to tell you now, Tony, what everybody wants me to say to you. You are not tactical enough. You haven't killed enough people, to be quite honest with you.
Exactly.
But that's the misconception. So listen, I appreciate the hell out of you coming on. I appreciate you stating the case. Hey, listen, anyone that I've motherfucked like you and you've come on this, you got stones. I'm telling you, I salute you because I'm telling you, I would never. I never, for the record, I never motherfucked him. I said a lot of things that needed to be said at different times, and that's that's the reality of life. So I appreciate you for doing that and coming on and listening to my bullshit and taking the time.
Absolutely.
And I hope everybody in the audience understands this is a guy that got a lot of money sunk into this. He's trying to help us out. He is not the fucking enemy. Understand that there's a lot of them out there. He's not the guy. He's throwing cash around. And any of you that cashed one of his checks and you have something bad to say, go fuck yourself. Listen, thank you. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody, all the sponsors, but go check out Big Daddy Unlimited. Go see what they're doing. I know you're getting into the ammo game. We're waiting for that promising news when that comes out, because hopefully that'll get, the boxes down a little bit in price. So
3 months.
Yeah, hopefully. We hope. So stay tuned. But I want to thank 6 Hour. I want to thank Volquartsen, Right On, Pulsar, every sponsor, Secure It, Rhino Metals. Hey, listen, guys. Go shopping. Go check out all the sponsors down below. Go help us out. Go help the show out. I got to cut out because I know he's a busy man. We're out.
Thanks.